A successful student is someone who combines an interest for the humanities with a clarity and voice in making art.
Visual and Critical Studies is the only genuinely multidisciplinary program at SVA. The first 2 years of the program, the students are encouraged to take a very eclectic array of printmaking, drawing, a lens art course, but we have the only studio course in music here, in sound.
The third year is a focus on theory. It's about aesthetics, which is the history of theories of art. And then the final year is when they actually produce. They're doing their own work.
I would say it's mainly a studio program, but that's supplemented with learning about mediums that aren't your own to further enhance the work that you're making in whatever medium that might be.
The most important thing that really distinguishes us is that we balance the academic side with the studio work.
I really was interested in having like a richer background with history, philosophy, theory.
We focus on producing the most robust, well-rounded, smart student possible.
It's an intensive curriculum. Studio classes typically are 6 hours. You're working with top-notch practicing artists.
You get to know the teachers a lot better because the class size is really small. It allowed me to really ask questions and be involved. I feel like I'm very supported.
We've had a number of students who've gone on into art education, into art therapy. We have a student who got her PhD in physics, successful fine artist. A lot of students end up being involved in web design, in publishing, in social media.
Well, we have our shared senior studio, which can stay 24 hours, which is kind of great because in working on my thesis, I was here until 1 or 2 a.m. every night. Students and teachers alike, you can talk about any medium, you can talk about any idea you have, and they'll be able to recommend both an artist and a writer, and I think you become a much more well-rounded artist.
There's one simple hearing hack anyone can use.
I saw that. Do we have anything else to watch?
Yeah, we can watch together. This one is one of our alumni.
Yeah, that one's cool.
Yeah, you guys can check out this page, we can look through it afterwards. There's some other alumni on there as well. We'll just go to YouTube so we can make it full screen.
When I started the operating system account, I actually think that I was doing it out of a place where I felt I needed something totally different from what I was doing at my job. I think that I wanted to do something that felt like an escape from that, and plants in every way were that escape. The tactility of it, the fact that I was standing up and watering things and not sitting at my desk more. I also love just going out and looking at greenhouses and places where the plants, especially the kind that I'm interested in, are really at their best. And so I would photograph this and photograph my place, and I would post that, and I kind of got involved with this community of other plant people and kind of went from there. It wasn't just to do it for the sake of itself, but to secure my place as an artist and be able to continue to get work. The community is super important for me. I love looking through other people's work and getting inspired, being able to talk to other people about the common challenges that we're facing, or even just talking about things we like, and just seeing where people are going and discovering the new plants that they're finding. Just all this flow of data that just really enriches your experience. Anytime that you're on social media, it's always just like a feedback loop where you want to keep doing something because people like it, and then so you do it more, and then people like it more, and that's kind of how it got going. For a long time, for years, it's been really important to have a web presence because that's where people find you. As an artist, I use social media and all these different websites, Pinterest, Instagram, Behance, ArtStation, all the rest. I use them for inspiration. But as an art director, I use all of these as well, and this is how I find artists. Find people that I want to work with. This is where art directors are, and they're looking for people to work with. You kind of have to constantly be putting yourself out there to be able to keep doing what you're doing. And if you want people to buy your work, or if you want to get work as an illustrator, as a designer, as a freelancer, or even if you're looking for full-time opportunities, it's really important to be present online in these spaces, on these portfolio sites. And I think that it's important to spread yourself out a little bit because you never know where your art director that you want to work with, what they're looking at. Being out there in the public space is how people will see your work, and if you want it to be seen, then be there, show up. My name is Olena Shmahalo, and this is SVA Creators.
So there's more of those alumni, so you get an idea of like what people are doing. She's an art director still. Una is really interesting.
Can you tell us about your international programs? Do you have international programs?
We have, in fact, SVA did not for a long time have its own semester abroad program, and I began one in 2014 in Rome, so we would go to Rome for a semester. During the pandemic, of course, we couldn't do that, and we haven't re-inaugurated that program because it turns out now that we have such a high proportion of students who are international, we don't have a very large pool of students they're already studying abroad, so they're not interested in studying abroad. The other thing is it's really hard. I mean, of course I'm in love with Rome, but it's hard to drag students away from New York. I studied abroad for a year. The president of the college studied abroad for a year. We're really committed to international education. The difficulty is that for many of the majors, the course of study is so intense that they're less and less willing to let students leave for even a semester. I don't think that's right because the president agrees with me when I say 8 semesters is great at SVA. You know what's even better? 7 semesters at SVA and 1 semester abroad. I mean, everyone knows this, all the studies, everything. And it's still difficult to convince students of that and to get them away from these intensive programs because it's often quite competitive what people's work looks like and so on. I have all these affiliations with schools, art schools around the world. So students we have a student actually going abroad next semester.
It can happen, it still happens.
It does still happen. So, you know, it's possible to do. I encourage it. I mean, I really want people to study abroad.
So let's just say my son says, I want to study in a university in London, like the #1 art school university, London. Do you have those relationships? Do you do like?
We have those relationships. So there's a woman whose full-time job is just facilitating current students studying abroad for a semester. So there's a list of all of those schools on the website. It's also possible, depending on the program chair, that's me in this case, to study abroad at a school that's not one of the ones that we have a relationship with, because students can always transfer, you know, a semester's worth of credits from another institution.
Okay,
So we would give some guidance about which. Flexible because everyone knows, everyone should know, being in a different place is a really good experience. And you come back enriched, and you come back looking at your home institution in a very different light. So yeah, I'm all in favor of that.
And we have students that come to study abroad here as well.
We do. We have an exchange student right now. He's here for the whole year from Spain. He's on a Fulbright. So he actually is one of the students with the seniors. And so it's great for my seniors to have someone, he's a little bit older, actually has a PhD in fine art. Very interesting painter. So it's, you know, that only enriches us. It's a good thing. But I wanted to say a little bit more about the program in the ways specifically that we are different from other majors at SVA, which I was talking with some of you about this on the way over. The other majors are primarily medium focused. So you go there to become a photographer, you go there to become an animator, you go there to learn computer art. By the way, when I arrived at SVA 19 years ago, not having taught at an art school, I was very naive. I thought, computer art, what an interesting thing. You must go and make art on computers, right? Doesn't that mean? Well, that's not quite what, I mean, you do that, but what you do also in animation as well as computer art is you learn the industry standard. You learn, this is the software they're using in animation. And yes, you make your art on it or whatever, but again, this is the part of art schools coming out of the history of trade schools. There's very medium focused and also very software focused and portfolio driven. You make this work and people from the Illustrator Society and so on, they come and look at the things. We're different than that in visual and critical studies. When David Rhodes asked me to develop this program 17, 18 years ago, the whole idea was to allow students to experience more of the breadth of different studio mediums here. and not to confine themselves so early and so young to one particular discipline or one way of thinking. So we designed the courses, both the required courses as well as the elective courses, over the first 2 years to kind of get students to take a variety of different things, not just painting 1 and painting 2. We have no required painting courses. Do some of our students take painting courses? Yes, definitely. But we, over the first 2 years, we have students take courses in printmaking, in sculpture, in drawing, in music, sound art, in the lens art, in digital, what do you call that, digital photography? Digital, you know, you learn Photoshop and you learn the software. Digital imaging, thank you. The students in the courses know. So, I mean, it's interesting because some students end up, you know, still committed only to one particular medium. Like we end up with a number of students who transfer in visual and critical studies from another department because everyone has an idea of what art school is like before they arrive, just as we all have ideas before we arrive at any kind of school. They land here and they see, oh, it's great, and it's 8 semesters of photography. And I would like to try something a little bit different. Not because I was wrong to choose photography. One can always go back to photography, but it's important to sample these other things and also to see the way the teachers and the students in another medium, the way they think about it and the way they make things. So some of our students, some of you stay pretty focused on one medium, and some of you actually add or work in a variety of mediums. Lucy, for example, you do a lot of performance, or how would you describe yourself?
Yeah, I mainly create performance art and video art as like my main focus, and like combining those two. But I feel like, I mean, I really enjoy VCS because I get to take so many different courses and so many different mediums, and you know, also in theory and writing and reading. And I feel like it all really makes me see art in a broader way. Like that's, I mean, I was originally gonna do like either film or fine arts, but I'm really happy that I chose VCS.
Yes, please.
So I hope I'm not going to be offensive. I'm going to ask a mom question.
Great.
Okay. My child is at his core an artist. He doesn't have a particular medium, but he's just at his like. But I will tell you, as a mom who loves art, loves all of it, I'm very practical, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we're talking about what do I want to be, whatever, and he says to me, "What if I just want to be an artist?" And he's honors, AP, all that. He says, "What if I just want to be an artist?" And I'm just like, "You could be an art teacher." Like, so I need to understand as a mom, what do you do with that, right? Because especially once he picked this because he thought he was coming for advertising, which to me, he's not going into advertising. But he's like, well, that's a practical, right? That'll satisfy mom, right? Let's go to advertising. He picked this because he didn't know what else to pick because advertising wasn't today. This is him, especially when you say that you're studying philosophy. And I came today saying he's not going to an art school. This is his, like he's in his own.
Yeah.
What is he going to do with his life? Like that's my question.
No one knows. I mean, this is, you know, there is this
What do you think you're going to do?
phenomenon of, you know, people in their 20s are going to, over the course of their 20s, they're going to change, not jobs, they're going to change careers on average 3 times. I'm talking about Americans.
Right,
It's fine, but then the question is, how do you educate for a person like that? And my answer is, you don't educate them narrowly. Emma wants to say that.
So this major is so broad. I think this would be a really good option for him, obviously. I think you can get a lot of connections through this major. Like I'm working for my professor as his studio assistant. And through that, I want to go into like art curatorship and like doing things for art galleries, and that's like a perfect outlet for me.
And I think that's it. Like I don't know, and I don't think he knows what he can do with his art. He has no idea. So, and he's in the limited public school. He's like, well, he took an architecture class just because he's like, maybe I'll do that. And he loved it until he got to the point where now I got to take physics and math, and because that's just not his brain, right? And
Yeah.
he can do it, but that doesn't bring him joy. So what does he do with this?
Well, he's lucky he's a creative person, right? And he's going to be a creative person. Then the question is, well, how do we educate? So sort of best advantage a creative person for what might happen later. And again, the answer for me is not to do something narrow, but to do something broad. That means a number of different mediums in art making. But for me, that also means, because I'm a liberal arts guy, that means you also educate the person. You also get them to read and write and learn about art history, because the more sophisticated someone is, the better creative person they will be, regardless which kind of career or work they go into. But the thing is, because of the economy that we're in, everyone knows this, right? No, I mean, your children are going to graduate 5 years from now. Does anyone know what the economy is going to look like 5 years ago? 5 years ago, was anyone talking about AI? Now everyone's, or many people, for better or worse, are talking about it. So, and schools, famously, education lags way behind what's happening in the economy, because schools are institutions, they have a certain disciplinary rigidity and so on. What I like about SVA and what I like about so many of the people who teach here is they're involved in the current economy, doing one thing or another. So they're actually aware of where the opportunities are and what they look like. And I think they shape some of the education that happens. And Aaron, we haven't heard from you about your medium or your experience, if you will.
Yeah, I don't really have a particular medium that I'm focusing on right now. My interest is film, but out of all of the classes I've taken painting classes, and right now I'm in a sculpture class, fiber arts class, so I learned to like crochet for an assignment, and that was so cool. But I'm actually also taking right now a class called Art Industry, and it's literally just every week we either industry professional comes in, or we meet over Zoom, or I've been on so many field trips this year, but just meeting people and talking about their own experience working in the arts and how they got to do that. Did they go to school for it? If they didn't, how did they find themselves in the industry? And it's been really very helpful, for sure. And I think a lot of the classes here are like that, even if it's not specifically about, you know, the art industry class. A lot of our professors really want us to be sure of ourselves and know that there are opportunities out there, and I think this program is really good for that because it's so well-rounded.
And I think that's it, like he doesn't have an idea, so that's a little scary. Like if you have an idea, like you sound like you have an idea, Lucy sounds like Lucy has an idea, he doesn't have an idea, you know? Yeah.
That will come, that will come.
Yeah.
Please.
What about internship opportunities? Like, do you have an office that focuses on like all the different opportunities during the summer? Let's just say that it's internships that actually pay and give you the experience of being out there.
Yeah.
And working.
Some of you have experience with internships.
Is it?
Well, Emma's doing one. Yeah. There is definitely an office. It's all organized.
And you just brought that up, so those are some.
So does it?
These are where some of our students have internet previously. Yeah, for the future it could be. Yeah,
Okay.
we have relationships with.
Are the three of you seniors or junior or seniors?
No.
We're
Juniors. And I heard from you, a curator, that's something that you see yourself doing. And both of you at the end, what do you think you'll do? Do you know what, after you graduate, what do you think you'll do? What you'll go into with this broad education that you've had in BCS?
I'd like to work in the film industry, but I think with what I've learned at BCS, I can definitely keep up like painting and stuff if I have that interest in the future.
What about you, Lucy? What do you think?
I'm also interested in curating the art world in general, in New York.
There's a lot of opportunity for work with this degree in New York because New York's the art city. So.
Yeah, and I definitely, ever since I got here, like it's opened my eyes to like more opportunities and places that I would, like all the teachers too have also been super like open to any question that you have, and like have these connections and these histories of working in art or around art. And I feel like that's really beneficial to me. And like also the idea of like not having an idea when you come into it. I mean, I certainly have an idea of like my own art for like that brings me joy, but it's like, you know, there's a lot of things like the job and the joy and like figuring out what you really like to do and what you can do as a career. It's like it's part of, you know, the experience here.
You know, one of the, I don't know if you think of it as fortunate or unfortunate aspects of being a creative person who makes art is other people respond to it. So one of the things that also happens is in your classes, but also when we have exhibitions, someone who makes something sees how people respond to it. Not just whether they respond to it, but they definitely have a very different experience of it than the maker has. It's always a kind of, in some ways it's quite radical often. And so I think there's a big part of the learning process that the maker sees which aspects of their work and how people respond to it or don't respond to it, and then how the maker then adjusts or doesn't adjust. So it's one thing to say, I'm a creative person, I'm always going to make stuff. Unfortunately, the world is going to respond to you in lots of ways. And that's, we try to sort of expand the opportunities for the world of other students, but also faculty and the public to see the work and say what they think about it. And that's important.
And from your perspective, where have you seen the students typically? I heard in the video before, I believe that student was an art director somewhere.
Yeah,
Is that what
Elena.
she's doing now?
She's an art director. As I mentioned, there are a number of students who've gone into art therapy.
What is that, therapy?
Art therapy, you usually need like a 2-year master's degree for it, but all of the public schools, private schools, all have art therapists. A lot of psychological institutions, most of them have art therapists. A lot of senior citizens facilities have art therapists. Art therapists are people who are creative, who figure out how to engage with people in a creative making environment that is an important component of their therapy, their physical therapy as well as their emotional therapy, healing. Art education, you know, they have them in the school as well.
Is there some, like, do you have a, well, you don't have like a liberal arts side, like you don't have psychology classes here for, like, what is it?
We do. Yeah, we do. Well, there are better and worse ways to prepare oneself for an art therapy advanced degree. And I encourage the students undergraduates who might be interested to talk to some of the people in those programs. And they usually just require a couple of courses in psychology, which you can pick up here from the humanities department.
And I ask that because he is interested in psychology too. And that's the problem, right? He loves art, he wants to go to an art school, but then it has this liberal arts interest as well, and it's difficult pairing the two.
Here's a way, I'm not a numbers person at all, but here's, giving you the numbers, here's an interesting way just to conceptualize the 120 credits that you need to graduate. In a regular BFA undergrad program, about 2/3 of those credits would be in studio courses, making and so on. And then the other third are in the humanities and art history. So this is not something the school decided. This is for accreditation reasons. In order to give someone a Bachelor of Fine Arts, there has to be humanities and art history component. So of the 120 credits, 30, that's 1 full year's worth of credits, are in the humanities. And another 15 or 18 are in art history. What's different in visual and critical studies is the divide is exactly 50 and 50. So half the courses are in studio and half are in humanities and art history. That, in the end, means that 1 course per year, a student takes 10 courses per year, 1 course per year is in the humanities or art history rather than in studio. That's the difference between us and one of the other BFA programs. So, yeah. I mean, yeah, we can leave it.
You mentioned before some of the electives that you get to pick, film and this, and are there core requirements for VCS? And what are those type of courses that are
That's a
required?
great question. There are required courses. They happen mostly in the first year. There's some in the second year. What I try to do is have what are called constrained electives. So the requirement is a student must choose among these 3 courses, must take one of them. So what I'm trying to do is sort of encourage students or force them in the first year to take this varied studio program. And then after that, it's a fair number of elective courses. And the way the students choose the elective courses, some students have ideas about what they want to do, but we also, at the end of each academic year, we have a portfolio review where we have 2 outside people come in and meet one-on-one with a student with their work up, usually, 10 or 15 pieces that students have made across in a number of different courses or even outside of their coursework. That whole portfolio review is then, there's a written response that the critics give. That's a way of assessing where the student's work is as a whole and pointing them toward, you might want to think about a course in this other medium or with this instructor. Or you might want to push this part of your work, or maybe investigate more of this side. So we not only have like the individual courses and the projects that go on in those, we also try each year, assess the student's overall development. So here's another numbers thing. If your son were to go into the illustration program, he would be one of almost 1,000 students. In visual and critical studies, your child would be one of 50 students. So everyone knows the other VCS students, so everyone knows everyone's name, or at least acknowledges them, and so on. So it feels more like if you know like the English system of like residential colleges, so people know one another, and I think there's a great advantage to that. Think about one's own undergraduate experience. It's better to have, whoever your people are, to have a group that you can think of as your people, rather than to be one of, a faceless horde.
Are these some of those constrained electives that you would expect?
This is Storm's.
Yeah, so when we look at these alumni profiles, they'll also tell you the courses that they took. It doesn't tell you whether they were required or electives.
I'm not sure which
I say to the students, these are required courses, but since I'm a philosopher, I'm obligated to listen to good arguments. So a student can't come in and say, I don't want to do drawing. But if a student comes in and says, I'm really a lens-based artist, this drawing class is just not for me, and I really want to take this other course, I say, well, you should really try it or whatever. But in the end, I usually let them do, if they are passionate about it. So we have a curriculum, and we allow people who are proactive and know what they want to do. Now, young people, sometimes they think they know what they want to do, but we have a better idea. We've been doing this for many decades. And we allow people to sort of carve their own path to some degree. So we are by far the most sort of loose in terms of requirements of because you can imagine, Shang, who is sitting next to me earlier today, who is the chair of animation, her mission is to make animators who are really, really good animators, right? So she doesn't want any distractions from that. Yeah, come in. Well, I can't make philosophers. I don't want to make philosophers. I want to make people. I want to make somebody who's like, who has a place in the world, who speaks up for themselves, who is curious, and knows, with their curiosity, knows what to do with it, knows where to find the resources, knows how to talk to people about it. I know everyone who's young thinks that 22 is really advanced and mature. It is in some ways, and it's really important to stay open, to be open, and to see how many things there are out there, and to learn how to access them. Yeah.
Just to make sure everyone gets some of these.
Thank you, Lucy.
I mean, are these just for the students or?
Oh,
Yeah,
no,
as long
I
as you
think
got
we,
one, it's fine. As long
okay,
as you got one.
per family or per person, it doesn't matter. We have so few people here because no one ever finds visual and critical studies, because people are looking at the list of 11 majors, they say, photography, I know what that means, illustration, I know what that means, and so on. Visual and critical studies, what the heck is that? This is why I always admire, the 17-year-olds who find us, or even if it's accidental, right?
When it comes to scholarships,
None.
when it comes to the availability of scholarships, are those based on whatever major you choose, and or is it like, okay, we have 100 and those will be dispersed based on the students, or are they dispersed based on?
It's a great question. The way it works is that admissions, where students apply, of course, admissions handles all of the scholarship and fellowship awards, right? So the chairs are not involved in that. Each department has a little bit of scholarship money. It's not much to make a real difference, but there's a couple of VCS scholarships, for a couple $1,000 for materials 1 year or something like that. There's alumni awards for seniors. But I'll tell you, here's a couple of really important things in applying. So the application includes the portfolio of work. They, in financial aid and admissions, they love to give out scholarships to work that really stands out. So that's the most important thing, is what your portfolio looks like. I'm less interested in that because I'm more interested in people's, ability to be someone who can read and write and know something about art history. The other thing to think about with financial aid is it's the school's money, it's not my departmental money. If you apply to visual and critical studies and you apply to any other art school or school and you get an offer of financial aid from another school, you need to let me know about that, because that gives me ammunition to take to admissions and say, this student, we want this student, and this is what another school is doing. Can we match it or improve it? So I'm on the side of, I want students to get more financial aid because I want more students who are able to come. And yeah.
Good to know.
Good tip.
Yeah, the portfolio is really important.
All right.
Claudio. How would you guys describe how writing intensive it is compared to people you know in other programs?
I mean, there's more writing, I would say, than a lot of other programs, but it doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't really feel like that big of a deal. Like when you're taking the class, it's like, because we do the classes are once a week, and so we have the whole week to do the homework and get everything done, and the teachers are really, they're encouraging, they're helpful, and yeah.
Yeah.
Do you do like public speaking?
Well, in the classes that I teach, I require the students to do presentations in class.
Professors here in this program require presentations and also some essays, but it's because of AI now, it's kind of not so much writing as in past years, I'm assuming.
And like even when there is, I mean, it feels like it really makes sense for, like, it's never like not justified. But there is, I feel like compared to other majors, more writing, and that's also why I kind of chose it, because I think writing is really important to me. But yeah, there is.
When you say because of AI now, do you mean it's so people aren't
I
writing
mean,
their
generally,
essays?
yeah.
In higher education, AI is a catastrophe. They write about it often in the Chronicle of Higher Education and so on. There are no good tools out there right now to actually detect AI. And I mean, I think it's a wonderful development. It's another tool. But what it means is we have to change the way in which we assess student performance. For a long time, you assess student performance by having them write things and reading and responding to it. That's, you know, I do more in-class writing now and more verbal presentation and things like that because I'm convinced that I'm a writer. I think writing is really, really crucial to sort of intellectual development, and that you need to leave a residue of what you thought. I know, I imagine I can remember all the ideas I had yesterday. I don't remember any of them actually. But what writing leaves is this trace and trail of some of your thoughts, bless you, from yesterday. And so you have not just a record of what you thought, but you have material to sort of work with to expand your thinking. I think your thinking can only go so far unless you're putting it down in some way. So I'm a big advocate of journaling and so on. It's difficult because we are art school, so students are visually oriented. Some of them are also sort of interested in writing, and we've had a number of really good writers. But I like to push that side. I mean, you can be really talented in visual making. It's also good to sort of, let me see what I can do over on this other side too. Were you going to say something? Okay. Would you like to sit? Okay. Should we can, there's some boxed lunches over there. We can continue the conversation while we eat. Is it lunchtime yet? What time is it?
Some more time. I can go check with Steve and maybe, I don't know, for anyone who hadn't seen the videos, you guys can play that again before, while everyone gets their lunch or something.
Who's in charge here, Lucy?
I mean, I'm just putting an idea. Well, we have 10 minutes. I mean,
I think they drew it and then they. Really? You all drew it and then they just. Tell us about your experience in the drawing there.
In the life drawing, what?
Yeah, Claudia. Yeah, but then you erased it. Why?
Why? Did you take a picture?
Because it's like a 2-minute pose, so it's not really supposed to be, you're not supposed to keep it. It's like disposable.
Oh, so it's 2 minutes, change pose.
Yeah.
2 minutes, change
The
pose.
model keeps the clothes on?
Yeah, pretty
Okay,
much.
all right.
He's been going to do.
Yeah, we do that here, of course, yeah.
I guess the exercise is to see like your gestures, like each drawing and layer on top of the erased ones.
Yeah, and sometimes in life drawing, they start with a number of sort of very short poses just to sort of loosen up and then go on to longer 10 or 15 minute poses. It's rare to have a pose longer than 10 or 15 minutes.
I didn't catch your name.
Emma.
Emma was telling us before you walked in that you were also considering art curatorship with this degree, and that's something that I know he has expressed to us as well, so maybe you can, I don't know, just ask.
Oh yeah, I was wondering like, what's like the projected career path for most BCS students here?
It's going to be very, very, very different. I want to go into curation. Lucy, who's sitting right here, is more into like performance art, but they also like art curation. I think most people, you could do basically whatever you want to do. Some are independent artists. Erin wants to go into film. So.
It's fair to say there's not a typical thing that VCS students do. They all end up doing pretty interesting things. That's why Mike had sort of up earlier a list of the internships, but we also have those videos about what some of the alumni have been doing. I have to say, all the alumni I know are all gainfully employed. I mean, SVA as an institution does a survey every few years and asks graduates to how many of them are working in the field in which they studied. And I think the last time they did the survey, it was somewhere between 70 and 80% of people who graduate end up working in that field. Yeah, but it's not art school is not a career path the same way engineering is, or hospitality studies, or there aren't places out there waiting for graduates, any graduates of art school. There aren't. But that's also the way companies now work, is there's a lot more freelance work, there's a lot more gig, it's a gig economy more and more.
Speaking of that, then do you offer classes that teaches students to how to be savvy when it comes to freelancing? Because it's basically you're creating your own business. So that means that you need to understand accounting. That means that you need to understand marketing and business studies, right? To be able to be a savvy freelancer.
This is the course that Aaron was talking about, the art and industry course, where a different person comes in each week, which is a great opportunity for students to learn, oh, I didn't even know there was a business doing that, and here's a person who does it. How do you go about doing that? Not about how do you find the job. How do you make yourself into an entrepreneur? Emma.
Most of the professors here, like Steve, who is just teaching, who's doing like the drawing thing with the students, he's an independent artist. So you can get information from your professors on how.
But you don't have courses on it.
We have a lot of information within courses about how to survive as an artist in New York. You know.
Okay.
And that, yeah, no one graduates here from VCS not knowing what to do next, right? It's also part of what's great about having a smaller program, so that the first year students actually hear from older students as well as alumni about how that happened for them. There is no one path. I think this is true in nearly every career. There is no one path of how to become an artist or how to become a successful artist. I mean, you know, the percentage of artists who are able to support themselves as independent artists, that's rather low, right? The world just doesn't have, there's a lot of art in the world, there's a lot of people making and selling art. To support yourself as an artist is a difficult thing to do just with your art. So most of the people who teach studio art here are artists who supplement their income by teaching here. So right, they're all part-time faculty. So they're a really great resource to learn about, well, here's one pathway to being an artist in the world, continuing to make your work, having a studio, and supporting yourself. Yeah.
I was a buzzkill. I'm an engineer, so I had a job waiting for me. So it's very different from what you just explained.
Yeah. And there are some of those career paths now for people in other institutions and in other majors, but there are also a lot of students who are in four-year undergraduate institutions that there's not a clear path, career path, or a place waiting for them, because a lot of companies don't work that way anymore.
I remember we did a tour a while back with our daughter, and that tour guide was a senior in that school, and she was telling us that she was being recruited as an art major. She was an art/engineering major by one of the top, tech companies that do design work, right?
Yeah.
So that was great to hear from a student that they were already in the pipeline to work for a large, I think it was Apple, and they hire a lot of artistic design students, right?
Yeah.
So I got excited to hear that there is like a path for creative thinkers. So of course I was a dual art engineering major, so maybe.
Yeah. A number of years ago, I had a freshman in the honors who got snatched away from school by Facebook. And he was very talented. I didn't know about this. He was an 18-year-old, but he was quite adept, and he stayed at Facebook for a long time. I don't think he ever went back to school. So there are some people who get found. I think that's pretty rare. Yeah.
I wasn't asked the following question, but I think you've answered it. There's no career placement office that help students transition to
there is
after.
Yeah, there is an alumni office, and there are people who help with career things and doing resumes and have connections to a lot of businesses in New York. But I think a lot of the students also have the experience of their individual faculty members, like Steve, can point them to people and businesses and things to do.
Which we often do. You know, like students will reach out and they'll be looking for jobs, right? And they'll say, hey Steve, is there any sort of like, you know, I'm looking to be an artist assistant. And, you know, we're all connected. And I could say, actually, yes, contact this artist, and they can do it that way. So, you know, we do talk to each other about that and finding jobs and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah. SVA also ends up hiring a lot of its graduates. I mean, Paloma is a alumna of SVA, a graduate program. Mike is an alumnus. I'm not. Steve is. I've forgotten that, Steve. Joey is, yeah, there's Joey. He just graduated in 2020. He's now finishing an MFA at Hunter College, and he's been teaching here and been involved. So, you know, it's a community of artists and makers, and we support one another. I think that's the other great advantage of a small program. And it's an interdisciplinary program. I think what often happens in the larger programs when people are really only working on one thing, like illustration, that everyone has to put their work up. And I think there are way more opportunities for students to feel competitive with one another because they're really assessing themselves next to other work in illustration. I think because we work across a lot of mediums, it's much easier for students to support one another because that competitiveness. Do you all feel any competitiveness among one another? Maybe you should. Only hello.
I don't know. I don't think I feel competitive against my own BCS majors, but if I'm in a class full of like fine arts.
Yeah, I really
kind of
because we all kind of like do different things.
Yeah, everyone in BCS is so different, and I think especially in our year, I don't know, we have such different skill sets and interests that it's really cool when we have, I don't know, like our sculpture class, like we all brought in something so different.
Yeah. Oh, I wish
like,
we could get pictures.
I know, that would be really cool. But it's very helpful, I think, that we're so different because you just get feedback and ideas from one another.
And then we also have the opportunity to pick the specific classes that we are really interested in. And then in those classes we are like, okay, now we're like competing because it's like, oh, we're doing this skill, this medium, and we're doing it with all these other people and we're presenting work that's specifically that. But in the BCS classes, it feels like we're all kind of coming from different angles.
Yeah. I will say I went to a different university for a couple years, and I was in the theater program, and we were also a very small program, but it was very competitive, and we could like feel that kind of pressure. And even though we did multiple productions a year, it was still like I have to be better than everyone else in my program, and I just don't feel that here. I think there's a lot of student and faculty support here that I didn't get at my former university, and that really makes me feel comfortable and like welcome in the classes for sure.
Other questions or concerns? Lucy, can we eat soon or? Yeah, why don't we grab some box lunches and we'll just continue the conversation, if that's all right.